Star Wars has always had a bit of a problem with numbers, especially when it comes to the size of the Empire. This is a topic that my friend Corey will be discussing soon in a video on his channel, but various Legends EU works, for example, gave the Empire anywhere from 25,000 Star Destroyers to several hundred. It's very difficult to match the feeling the original trilogy gives us and the sense of scale to what would really be necessary to run a galactic government, and that's notwithstanding the fact that Star Wars is a space opera. The numbers are just very difficult to imagine, and it's hard to figure out how a government and a military that large could fall. Legends, I think, did a pretty good job by having lots of little Imperial losses over time, then eventually having a peace with the New Republic and the Essential Guide to Warfare and other books cleaned up lots of the background lore. That being said, there weren't as many novels which actually dealt with the scale of the Empire, instead focusing on specific threats, if that makes any sense. The new canon, however, has gone for a different approach. The Aftermath trilogy, one of the earliest Star Wars canon series, actually sets an end date for the Empire, about 1 year after Endor. Now, that does come with a massive asterisk that we're going to discuss in just a second, but I do think that date is troubling, and that little bit of world building has set the sequel trilogy up and the later eras for maybe a bit of difficulty. So, in Book 2 of Aftermath, Rey Sloane goes to Coruscant to basically look at the records of remaining Imperial ships. First of all, she learns that the Empire has but one remaining, at least confirmed, Super Star Destroyer with a second suspected, meaning that essentially, including the Executor, they lost 11 dreadnoughts in a single year. Now, some of that was due to accidents or the ships being commanded poorly, but that is a lot of military hardware to lose in a single year. However, we also get the following quote: "The inventory of the Star Destroyers is similar, but on a far grander scale. 75% of the Star Destroyers in service before Endor can capably be tracked to similar fates. Destroyed, captured, lost in confirmable, if curious ways. But a full quarter of those ships could not be accounted for. Records show fateful ends that contradict their black box recordings." There are some key numbers to break down here, and this is how I interpret them. Let's say the Empire had 100 ships before the Battle of Endor. 75% of those, or 75, are now missing, destroyed, or captured by the New Republic. 25% of those 75, or 25 however, have a sort of dubious destruction and may still exist somewhere, perhaps as a shadow fleet or just under control of rogue Imperials. We'll come back to this, but even if we suggest that all of those ships survived without difficulty, somehow the New Republic still managed to destroy 50% of the Star Destroyers in service before Endor. Now true, I guess some of those would have been destroyed during Imperial infighting or, crashed into stars or whatever else, but especially given the size of the New Republic and the Rebel fleet, that is a ludicrous amount of ships to lose in a single year. The New Republic, when founded, would have started to militarize, but the Empire had been building ships without really concern for much else for 2 decades. I mean, their Super Star Destroyers alone should have easily been able to stand up to the Rebel fleet. However, with the New Republic being able to seriously whittle down these many forces in 1 year, makes the factions out to be almost even strength. And this is one of the major issues I have with this trilogy. It went way too deep into things. Normally, I want Star Wars to give me details, but the details given by Aftermath are just, well, ridiculous. There's no amount of confusion after Endor, or Imperial division which can justify that sort of shift in geopolitical power. I mean, I don't think in a year New Republic ships could move around the galaxy fast enough to kill that many Star Destroyers. A massive navy amassed over 2 decades cannot just be overthrown in a year by such a smaller force. But let's get to that asterisk I mentioned. As Rey Sloane deducted, a significant portion of the Empire's navy was actually brought out of service and hidden immediately after Endor. There are several nebula with hundreds of Imperial Star Destroyers across the galaxy waiting in service, and we also know that other Star Destroyers and also the Eclipse Super Star Destroyer are even further away in the unknown regions waiting to begin the First Order. However, that notwithstanding, as I've been reiterating, we know that the Empire still took enough losses for Rey Sloane to think that it was on its last legs, and that's again in a single year. When we read the Aftermath trilogy, the Empire is basically being run by, well, bottom of the barrel commanders. I mean, during the Imperial Summit on Akiva, Ray Sloane is just an admiral, not a fleet admiral or a grand admiral. It makes no sense for the ranks to have been decimated that quickly. I know I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but it's just a baffling bit of world building. Then of course we get to the Battle of Jakku. So I was always a little bit unclear about this. It seems that some of those hidden nebula fleets do appear over Jakku, while others may have been headed straight for the unknown regions. Regardless, Jakku represents the majority of the Empire's power in the galaxy, but they're still actually outnumbered by the New Republic at this point. Early on in Empire's End, we get the following quote: "Their fleet will be larger than ours, but we have the Ravager, the Super Star Destroyer. Theirs is still a ragtag force, strategically ill-fed and cobbled together of incompatible ships and squadrons. We are unified, and in that unification, we will win this battle." Then later, when the New Republic fleet joins in, the numbers of the New Republic fleet are superior, put simply. Some of the Aftermath trilogy does deal with the New Republic building new ships, and of course, they get the Starhawks, but yeah. I think I've said it all. And to me, the most frustrating thing is that this little bit of weird lore isn't actually caused by the movies. The movies tell us that there was a Battle of Jakku, but it's the Aftermath trilogy which puts that battle 1 year after Endor, and more importantly, sort of makes it the Empire's last stand. Had it been moved to, say, 10 years out, well, that would have made a lot more sense. Another good explanation would have been, well, that was simply one Imperial faction, and although that does appear to be true to an extent, the new canon has really minimized the importance of Imperial warlords. And also frustrating is the fact that later books like Bloodline set the era up to be pretty much without major conflict. There would have been better alternatives. One would have been to set Jakku a significant time after the Battle of Endor. Maybe 10 years or so, that would be much more realistic. Then later material could have filled in the explicit details of how the Empire broke up so significantly. Another detail would have been to have many more ships simply disappear. I mean, we see in The Rise of Skywalker that there are massive Imperial fleets waiting, well, somewhere. We also know that Palpatine basically did whatever possible to break the Empire up, but within a year, it's not really possible without more drastic measures, like the total destruction of many ships, Star Destroyers leaving en masse to a position that no one knows. But that's just my opinion, and I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. Has the new canon handled the decline of the Empire well? Am I being overly critical? I look forward to reading all of your comments later. But that's all I have for you guys today. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and until next time, may the Force be with you.